This second part of the review lecture for the analysis essay will do some zoom-in moments to take a look at the features of writing that should characterize analytical papers and how to kind of obtain a formal tone and elevated word choice. The first thing that many students pointed out in their cover letters to me when it came to struggles with this paper was the fact that they didn't know how to not use their favorite pronoun you or we. Now, you in formal writing has no place. I'm just going to say it. It doesn't ever sound good. I think the personal I probably sounds better in formal writing than you as a second person pronoun to refer to someone else. You sounds vaguely accusatory and strange, and you don't need to break the fourth wall when you're talking to your audience. You just need to assume that they're listening to you so you don't have to like point at them in your essay. So there are always better ways to say you in formal writing. If you take nothing else away from this class, take that away. And we're going to explore some of those methods as well. And the better thing about those words is that they're more precise. I am a big believer in precision in writing, precise word choice. Wordiness does not equal intellect. Precision and focus and absolute clarity of language does. That's what gives you quote unquote flow sentence to sentence. It's when one thing connects to the other and there's no bullshit in between. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to about this you problem is with this follow-up to a quotation that I used about emotions back at the second page of the paper. So with this compelling idea in mind that the human brain is wired to make decisions based on how it feels rather than using pure reason, the company showcases Bush's desire to overcome obstacles and persevere, which maintains the audience's attention. So instead of saying, which maintains your attention meaning the attention of the audience, well, just say the audience, because you, the reader, or a different person than you, the audience viewing the Super Bowl, or you, the audience that's relevant in the context of this particular quotation. So the audience is a way to refer to you in a paper like this. Another thing that you can do to avoid you and we is to, again, like refer to viewers or consumers or readers if you're talking about the circle as we approach our next big work in this class. If we take a look at our introduction up here, instead of saying like people, which people? Groups of people. Well, which groups of people in a particular paper while you're trying to establish context? You want to be precise about what people you're talking about. Many were quick to point out the anti-racist messaging promoted by Anheuser-Busch. Trump supporters, there's someone, many. You don't need to say, how many exactly, but, the presence is online, so we can say many, and then Trump's supporters viewed the advertisement as overt criticism, and then, we don't have to just say groups of people, we can articulate who's saying what in general. It seems the staff writers at the Huffington Post had something to say about this, like this guy Strahan. Strahan and others who interpret Anheuser-Busch's messaging similarly is just a way of saying people who think differently than maybe Trump supporters did in reference to this advertisement. And it's okay to delineate between groups in papers like this if it calls for it. It's okay. Another thing that I wanted to point out, let's see here. Follow-up. Follow-up for integrated quotations. Let me find a good integrated quotation here. Here we go. Budweiser executive Ricardo Marques in a press release explained that Bush's journey is a, quote, here's my integrated quotation, a universal story that is very relevant today. Okay. So I have to do something with this. I don't want to end a paragraph on a quotation that's like handing your voice off to someone else and never taking it back. So the follow-up to integrated quotations in an analysis essay should always point back to your thesis statement. You're letting the source work for you in some capacity, so show how it's working. This universal story, as viewers come to realize, viewers, right? Not as you come to realize, but viewers come to realize, appeals to them by extending good faith in their aspirations to be like Bush. Okay, so good faith arguments, aspirations to be like Bush has a lot to do with this thesis statement about perseverance. Where is it? About perseverance and grit, right? And achieving success vis-a-vis the American dream and the values that are continuously reinforced as a result of it. Now, all of this takes a tremendous amount of attention. Attention to this lecture, attention to resources provided to you in this class, attention to what the book says about rhetorical analysis, to your commercial, to whatever else. And I find that sometimes students take one of two paths. They don't pay enough attention, they poorly manage their time, and then they sort of crank out a paper that is good for lining a bird cage, but not much else. I'm sure that's not you. That's never you, right? Not in my class. The other side of that is students get overwhelmed with the amount of detail and they just have no idea how to sort things out. So this paper becomes an amalgam of information having to do with the product, with the company, with people's responses to the commercial, with whatever, but often they lose track of the actual topic of the paper, which is the commercial itself and the rhetoric that it employs. So when you come up with an observation about something happening in an advertisement, whether it's a color, a mood, a song, a line, a symbol, you have to tell the reader what it means, and that requires a lot of mental discipline. So with a paper like this that can get a little unwieldy with its moving parts, I really, really recommend a carefully organized outline. In fact, one person in particular even said in their cover letter that they wish they had made one in retrospect because they couldn't just run out the gate with this paper and put it together like any other. And it's deliberately set up to be kind of challenging for you as a writer. This is a class that scaffolds and scales as we go. So each thing that I'm going to ask you to produce week by week is going to be a little more complicated and require a little bit more of your time and attention than the week prior. So just be prepared for that. Be prepared for the idea that you can't sit down and write a paper the night before something is due and have it go well. That generally doesn't work in my class. And students who test it overall regret doing so. So if you need to rewrite this paper, that's okay. It's okay to have to redo this thing. That's what good writing is. It's revisable. I don't really believe in the Jack Kerouac school of writing, which is that spontaneous, unedited work is the best work. In fact, it's usually the worst. So approach this as a craft with deliberation and with time and with discipline. Along with that discipline comes, of course, responsibility, right? You're in charge of your grades. You're in charge of the way that you write. So be careful with what you submit to me. When I can tell that students have gone through and they have polished their writing and they have made sure, for example, that every single quotation is in fact integrated and not dropped into the paper. They have accounted for details like, I do here with abandoning a burning ferry, slogging through mud and cold fields on a dreary morning, dingy lighting. These are all concrete details happening in the commercial that I need to explain somehow. Assume that your audience needs things explained to them. They know the commercial, they know what it's about, but maybe they need the significance broken down for them. So you say, hey, check out this thing that's happening. Look at this person in this advertisement. Here's what that means. Here's a source that kind of supports what I'm saying here. And in doing so, you're building a more sophisticated and better written draft overall. Rough drafts are not final drafts in this class. I was, frankly, disappointed to read the number of rough drafts of the past from the week prior when I came to grade final papers. And I could tell that many people turned the rough draft of the intro and the argument in and did not take the time to look over the feedback that I gave that specifically warned them about stuff that they did in the final paper, including For some reason, I had to spell melancholy twice over the course of 1 week because one student just didn't pick it up and apply it. So I'm going to give you feedback such as this, and lots of it, I expect students to do something with it. Revision is not an editing process. It's a way to rethink and fundamentally reconsider the way you have put together an assignment. And you should not be mad if you have to revise. You shouldn't be mad at me, and you definitely shouldn't be mad at yourself. This is the nature of writing. It needs craft and it needs discipline. And if it means it needs a second and third shot, you should take those shots if they're offered to you, and take them seriously. So if I get a draft back for the analysis essay that only features, a few highlighted things here and there, it looks kind of like this if you were to draw your attention to this side of the panel, I would be skeptical that you actually fundamentally undertook revision. So if you choose to, up the ante, that's my invitation to you as a writer in this class, is to take where you're at and push yourself more. Acknowledge where you're at and push yourself more. If you're disappointed, you can get around that in this class, but it's up to you largely to do so. And of course, your conclusion should explore the implications of your argument. It should take what you've written about and not just summarize it, but say, oh, here's the bigger connection, right? The bigger connection for my particular conclusion, if we jump down here, right here, starting at the bottom of page 4, we'll label this as a conclusion because I didn't do that in my previous lecture. The big thing that's at play for my conclusion is that I need to connect this to an audience. Who are the people that Bush is really talking to? Or who do they think they're talking to is maybe the better question. So it's not just about people who persevere, it's about people who persevere in this particular way, and that it resonates with today's entrepreneurial generation. An entrepreneur is one who wants to forge ahead and create new paths of innovation, and then in doing so participate in a long-standing tradition of perseverance. So I'm bringing it back to my thesis statement, but I'm also bringing to light the fact that entrepreneurship is a big theme in this commercial, and as a result, it's a big theme for their audience as well. So if you want to make an audience connection perhaps at the end of your analysis essay, if you choose to revise, that is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. You can talk about the larger cultural context and implications of this, what it shows, what it demonstrates. If I found a moment in your paper that looks like it would be good for a conclusion, I noted it, and then I said, tuck this in at the end. I even did this for one person's rough draft. I said, this is something that you should develop in a conclusion. But that thing stayed where it was in the intro and it never went anywhere afterwards, simply because that person did not apply what I said to apply. So take that away from this lecture as well, is that I'm giving you feedback for a reason. I'm trying to show you how to improve your work. If something doesn't make sense, ask me about it. Specifically, say, you said this in response to this passage. I'm not really sure what that means. Can you please clarify? I'm fine doing that. You should not message me and say, I don't understand any of your feedback. I'm really lost. Please tell me what to do all over again. I won't do that. But struggle with writing. My invitation is to struggle a little bit. It's okay to struggle. Writing sucks. I hate writing too, and I teach it. I understand that it is a difficult process, but it's highly rewarding when you can move from where you're at to where you can actually be with some effort. If it comes down to merely imitating what an analytical tone looks like because you're not really sure how to write analytically, that's a good start. Imitate. Feel free to imitate this paper. It's fine. You can imitate the organization, the word choice, the sentence structure and phrasing. I'm happy for you to do that because eventually you find your own voice in the process. So don't get discouraged, but pay attention. That's one of the greatest lessons in English 201A, is to pay attention to what you are saying and how you are saying it to someone who's reading your paper. So good luck. Please revise. You'll do great. And consult this lecture again if you need to.